Good morning, and welcome to the Mount Diablo Unitarian Universalist Church. I am Michael Macias. I am the intern minister here at MDUUC, and my pronouns are they and them. We are so glad you are spending your time with our congregation today. For those visiting this morning, welcome. We hope all visitors will fill out a visitor card either through the website or here on campus. Next month, we have Connecting UU and MDUUC for those of you who are new and want to learn more about who we are and what we do together. And on the first Sunday of each month, we have a chance for people who are willing to make the commitment of membership. Our congregation has many ways to connect. Every Tuesday and Thursday at noon, there's a lunch bunch, a gathering of MDUUCs virtually on Zoom. So if you'd like a midday check-in, I invite you to join them. Information can be found on the church website. Elder Journey continues to meet every Wednesday at 10:30 virtually as well. Information for that is also on the website. Next Wednesday is our first summer Vesper service at 6:30. That will be a hybrid format, in person and virtual as well. All are welcome. And our summer community circles begin this week. There are two, one on Thursdays and one on Saturdays. Again, information for each of these can be found on the church website. We are also mindful of the rising infection rate of COVID-19 through our communities and encourage you all to continue to follow the safety protocols, wearing your masks, washing your hands, and giving those who ask for distance the space that they need. Please contact Reverend Rodney or myself if you are in need of a listening ear, special care, or financial support. Asking is a gift you give. Welcome to this beloved community.
Good morning. My name's Davina. I'm a member of your Board of Trustees. My pronouns are she and her. Mount Diablo Unitarian Universalist Church is a welcoming faith community. We begin our services by reading our mission together. We bring to life our Unitarian Universalist values as we seek truth and work for justice, nurture compassion and courage, reach out to each other and to our larger community of faith, bridge the divisions that wound the human family, transform ourselves and our world. We're so glad to have you with us, and we hope you're keeping safe. Just a couple of announcements this week. Thank you so much for making our Close the Gap fundraiser and mini auction a great success. Hooray! Thank you to our leaders, especially Peggy Kroll, Sally Edgerton, Joe Galinas, and Katie Wills, as well as to Kathy Vale and Bob Boster, whose matching gifts made our efforts to raise funds for a staff COLA a success. If you have items to pick up, please do so as soon as possible. Reverend Leslie Takahashi will be on study leave and vacation starting Tuesday, July 5th. Non-urgent messages can be left on her voicemail at 925-934-3135. extension 112, or you can email her at leslie@mduuc.org. Indigo Lewis will be on vacation for the first 3 weeks of July. Please contact Michael at MDUUC with questions about programs. And welcome. It's good to be together.
And in the spirit of community, let us greet one another using our elbows and following those safety protocols.
Good morning. My name's Sharon Solstice. My pronouns are she and hers. For our chalice lighting this morning, I'm going to read you a bit from Zen and the Art of Knitting. And if anybody wants to read the book when I'm done, I'm happy to give it to you. It's by Bernadette Murphy. But just as a sweater can be pulled apart and unraveled, returned to the earlier ball of wool, so too will the elements I am composed of return to dust, the particles of me rejoining the earth. In the meantime, the pattern and construction of my life, as well as of the sweater I'm knitting, are in my hands. I may look to the designs others have used as inspiration. I may change the plans midstream. I might follow a pattern exactly as written or create my own unique statement. But in the end, I am the one who makes these stitches with my actions, my words, my thoughts. I construct the pattern of my life in the same way I construct the sweater, piece by piece, stitch by stitch.
And now I would like to invite all of the children or those young at heart to come forward for a story that I have. And it's kind of interactive. We have questions. You get to talk. No, I know, not too much, but you. So this story is called Be Kind. I have a friend named Tanisha, and she spilled grape juice yesterday. It went all over her dress, and everyone laughed. I almost did too. But my mama always told me to be kind. So I tried, but I don't think it worked. You know why? Because I said, "Purple is my favorite color." I thought Tanisha would smile, but instead she ran into the hall. When she came back, she put on her art smock and didn't look at anyone else. I almost told Tanisha that art is my favorite class, but I didn't want her to leave again. So instead, I just kept painting purple splotches and added some green until I had a bunch of what I thought were beautiful violets. While I painted, I thought about Tanisha. Do you think I should have handed her a napkin? Would that have been kind? I can't hear you. Yes, no, maybe. Okay. Do you think maybe I could have let her borrow my sweatshirt? Would that have been kind? Yeah. I guess I could have spilled grape juice on myself and had everyone look at me instead. Would that have been an option, maybe? What does it mean to be kind anyway? What does it mean for me to be kind to you or for someone else to be kind to me? Do you think it may be giving? I like making cookies for my neighbor, Mr. Rinaldi. He lives alone. I often give my tight shoes to people with smaller feet. Do you think that is kind? Maybe it's helping my mama out by putting dirty dishes away or cleaning up after myself or picking up my laundry or making your bed. How many of you make your bed? Now that's not fair. How many of you all make your bed? Okay, all right. Maybe it could be cleaning up after Otis. He's our class guinea pig. He is a very messy eater. Maybe it is paying attention to Desmond, telling him that I like his boots, or asking the new girl to be my partner. Maybe it's listening to my Aunt Fran's stories, even the ones I've heard over and over again. I think being kind should be easy, like throwing away a wrapper or recycling a bottle, or saying thank you or bless you. My mama says the quickest way to be kind is to use people's names. Do y'all use people's names? Let's try it. How about everybody turn to the person next to you, use their name, and say you're happy to see them. That goes for you online, too. You know, being kind is hard, even when you know what to do. Teaching someone something that I'm good at, it's very tricky, even when I'm patient. And sticking up for someone when other kids are mean to them, that's very hard too. Maybe I can't solve Tanisha's grape juice problem. Maybe all I can do is sit by her in our class and paint this picture for her because I know she likes purple too. Maybe I can only do small things. My small things, though, can join other people's small things, your small things, and maybe all of those things grow into a big thing, something really big, something so big that all of our kindness spills out of our schools and spreads around our town, traveling across the country and going all the way around the world, right back to Tanisha and me, so we all can be kind again and again and again. And now we'd like to sing our youth and children out to their religious classes.
Be open to new learning. May your lips bring truth into the world. May your hearts know love and your hands do the work of justice as you go your way in peace. As you go your way in peace.
The year is 1989. I am attending Rocky Run Intermediate School, and a deal is struck between those of us in symphonic band and our teacher. If we get straight superior ratings at the next regional competition, we get to pick a song, any song, to play at the spring concert. We pull it off. Discussions are held and middle school negotiations among cliques occur. In the end, a nearly unanimous decision for the music is chosen. We Didn't Start the Fire by Billy Joel. Who knows this song? Okay. For those who may not be aware, this song, from a purely musical standpoint, is quite possibly the most monotonous, bumbling song ever written. Billy Joel himself even criticized it on strictly musical grounds. In 1993, he said, "It's not really much of a song. If you take the melody by itself, it's terrible, like a dentist drill." Except for the chorus, it's basically a series of 16th notes and an 8th note here and there, multiple bars not changing notes, and when they do, usually up and down by about a note. For weeks, we rehearsed over and over and over. But while the earworm part of the song may be due to the repetitive dentist drill of the tune, its true sticking power has been the lyrics. You see, the song is the result of a discussion that Joel, 40 years old at the time, was having with a guy who said it was horrible to be 21 in 1989. Joel retorted, "Yeah, I remember when I was 21. I thought it was an awful time too. We had Vietnam and, drug problems and civil rights problems, and everything seemed to be awful." The friend replied, yeah, but it's different for you. You grew up in the 50s, and everybody knows that nothing happened in the 50s. Joel piped back, "Wait a minute, didn't you hear of the Korean War or the Suez Canal crisis, or..." You get the idea. He would later say that those headlines formed the basic framework for the song. All in all, he used the song to outline 118 significant political and cultural events during his lifetime, showing just how messed up the world was for those 40 years. Fast forward 33 years. June 2022. I'm having a conversation with my son, who tells me I had it easy. That in his lifetime, being born in 1999, he had never known a time when the U.S. was not at war. That since he's been alive, the economy has been stacked against regular people. The world was generally a bad place, with leaders and the super rich deciding what happens and usually steering things in the wrong direction. In one of the growing number of thoughts recently that have made me feel really old, I found myself saying to him, have you never heard of the Cold War, the Iran-Contra affair, the AIDS epidemic, and the blatant disregard our leaders had for the suffering, along with a few other things? I could literally hear myself thinking, back in my day. But there it is, the grind that has gone on since the dawn of time. Some people making decisions that end and harm the lives of millions. Some people suffering, some people fighting for change. And the world continues to turn, generation after generation, all saying, as the chorus to that Billy Joel song, we didn't start the fire, no, we didn't light it, but we tried to fight it. Come, let us worship together.
Please rise in body or spirit and join us in singing hymn number 349 from the Gray Hymnal, We Gather Together.
We gather together in joy and thanksgiving, acclaiming creation whose bounty we share. Both sorrow and gladness we find now in our living. We sing a hymn of praise to the life that we share. We gather together to join in the journey, affirming, committing our passage to be a true affirmation when bound and tribulation. When found a human care and hope, then we are free.
It is the tradition of this congregation that when one of our members passes, we light a flame from our community chalice in their honor and memory. And today, I have the honor of not one, but two passings to note. This first candle is for Marilyn King, who passed this week. And it was due to her daughter wanted us to remind everyone of the care that we take in our community by using masks and staying close to the love and care of our community. It's important. Marilyn passed of a heart complication due to 2 COVID infections. Let's take a moment of silence to honor Marilyn and her family. The second candle that I am lighting is for a dear member, Deborah DiNucci, who passed this past Thursday due to surgical complications. Many of us worked alongside Deb in the kitchen. She was instrumental in helping us to stabilize our menus for winter nights, and she helped Carol Tracy do the SCAF building remodeling. This candle I light for Deborah DiNucci and her family. Let us take a moment. May these candles and their memory always be a blessing.
join us in the meditation hymn number 123 in the Gray Hymnal, Spirit of Life.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
We've come to the part in our service where we uplift the joys of this community and collectively hold the sorrows that are too much for any of us to bear alone. This morning, Sharon Stolzis is lighting a super candle for 3 reasons. 1, after 1 month with a new kidney, her nephew Matt is thriving. After 45 years of working, Sharon wants you to know that she's retired. And finally, after 1 month of failure, Sharon has figured out how to keep the deer out of her garden. This morning, I'm asking Reverend Rodney to light a candle of concern for David Shoemaker as he continues to recover from pancreatitis. May we hold him in love and prayer. I'm asking Reverend Rodney to light a candle of joy to celebrate the much-deserved vacation for Reverend Leslie Takahashi. May this time be deeply nourishing and restorative for her. Finally, I'm asking Reverend Rodney to light 2 final candles. The first representing all the joys and sorrows that remain unspoken in our collective consciousness. The second, a gentle reminder that we are the keepers of love and justice makers in this one imperfect but important world.
Good morning. My name is Tom Adams, and my pronouns are he and him. Today's reading is from Here, Right Matters, a book by Lieutenant Colonel Alexander S. Vindman. In 2019, Lieutenant Colonel Vindman had a difficult choice to make. He had to decide whether to tell the truth in testimony to Congress, even if it meant risking his reputation, his livelihood, and possibly facing threats to himself and his family. You may remember that Vindman testified at the impeachment trial about what he had heard the president say on the phone, in a phone conversation with the president of Ukraine. Vindman recalls in his book that his father was strongly opposed to his testifying. His father had brought his family of Ukrainian Jews from the Soviet Union to America 40 years earlier. He writes, "My dad suddenly began arguing with me. I must at all costs, he insisted, avoid testifying against the president. His anxiety blew up, and soon he was yelling. Support the president, my dad demanded. Do whatever the president wants." My father had lived in this country for 40 years, yet there was no doubt in his mind that when push came to shove, the highest levels of the U.S. government were bound to resemble the Soviet system he fled. Despite his success in it, he'd abandoned the Soviet system, leaving everything behind, not for financial advantage, but because America is supposed to be fundamentally different. But he didn't trust that difference to hold up in a crisis. Still, I believe that my dad had to know on some level that America was different from the Soviet Union. My own career was living proof. From seemingly less than promising beginnings, I'd enjoyed a successful rise in the military and foreign policy establishments. Not because I learned to suck up, go along, avoid risk, and refrain from expressing myself. Just the opposite. I'd enjoyed that success through a series of challenging encounters. I discovered a personal passion, taken calculated risks, spoken my mind, and trusted my gut. My life story wasn't just any career success story or story of service to one's country. It was a particularly American story. When I came in conflict with corrupt authority, I acted on the values that brought me so far. And it was from my dad himself that I began to absorb those values before I could even speak. Of course, he was right to a degree. I was already experiencing reprisals from a career-oriented, conflict-averse officialdom of just the kind that my father had encountered in the Soviet Union. But I was also certain, immovably certain, and I remain so, that the behavior of such people didn't tell the whole story of government in the United States. I was certain, and I remain certain, that here, in the end, right matters.
I heard them say, don't dwell on what has passed away or what is yet to be. I can't run no more with that judging crowd, those critical voices still say my name out loud. Oh, they've summoned up a thundercloud, and they're gonna hear from me. Ring the bells that still can ring. Forget your perfect offering. There's a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. We asked for signs, the signs were sent. The birth betrayed, the marriage spent. Oh, the faults and the flaws of every government. Signs for all to see. Oh, the wars, they will be fought again. The holy dove, she will be caught again, and bought and sold and bought again. The dove is never free. Ring the bells that still can ring. Forget your perfect offering. There's a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. You can add up the parts, but you won't have the sum. Strike up the march, there is no drum, but every heart to love will come. Oh, but like a refugee. So ring the bells that still can ring. Forget your perfect offering. There's a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. That's how the light gets in. That's how the light gets in.
Wow, Sierra Lynn. Well done. And the reading, yay. Good morning. I'm Janice Davis, a member of your Board of Trustees, and I use the pronouns she and hers. As some of you may know, I thoroughly enjoy reading. I read the New York Times, I read mysteries, Martin Walker's a favorite, and nonfiction about nature. When I was in elementary school, my library card opened the doors for a wider world to me. My mother read the local newspaper, she read the church bulletin, Reader's Digest selections, Norman Vincent Peale, and the long, chatty letters from relatives in Colorado. My dad was not a reader. He listened to the news on the radio in the garage while he did the family laundry, built cabinets and furniture occasionally, and drank warm beer. Family money was not spent on buying books until I purchased college textbooks. In the past 2 weeks, I've been angered and troubled by court decisions to limit rights and by the lack of political will to address the frequency of violence across our country. But additionally, I was outraged again when I read about the recent decision of the Muskego, Norway School District to ban Julie Otsuka's book, When the Emperor Was Divine, a book that addresses the incarceration of Japanese Americans during World War II. Book banning is not new. Most of the challenges to specific books are objections to content. The American Library Association says that 1/3 of all attempts at banning books target the ones that discuss racism, sexuality, and gender identity. Elected officials for public schools and county libraries, and those that are appointed by them, have the power to remove books from curriculum lists or library shelves. Yes, more banning is happening, and some librarians have preemptively removed potentially banned books to protect their jobs. Oh, the good news, the good news. The American Library Association will be celebrating Banned Book Week. September 26th through October 2nd. Banned books like Steinbeck's Grapes of Wrath or Richard Wright's Native Son often make their way to the all-time Goodreads list. For families who can't afford to buy books, free access to all books at libraries is essential. The American Library Association motto this year is, "Books unite us, censorship divides us." Yay! MDUUC's programming highlights the written world in so many ways. In Times for All Ages, in discussions about important social justice reads, music, lyrics, book groups, and the celebration of those authors among us, some of which are Betty Reed Soskin, Jim Hassey, Robert McNally, and Reverend Leslie Takahashi. Unitarian Universalist founders were energetic writers. They wrote letters, they chronicled the work to establish all of the strong faith communities and to work for social justice. Now, this is the giving part, your generosity in financially supporting this congregation where learning is embraced is greatly appreciated. The ushers will now come forward to collect the offerings. And now please join me in reading the dedication of the offering. To the work of this community in transforming ourselves and our world, we dedicate ourselves and our offerings.
Good morning. My name is Leslie Polgar, and my pronouns are he and him. Movies and history are two of my favorite subjects, and this morning I weave them together to share some ideas about leadership, individual responsibility, and what we are called on to do amid today's chaotic events. I've found this weaving to be difficult. The two threads are so different. History is woven fine, but movies are made of a coarser fiber. As a new immigrant kid, I enjoyed the YMCA in Montreal's Notre-Dame-de-Grâce district. It was only a half-mile from our house and one street over from my grade school. It was great for sports. Soccer in spring, softball in summer, football in autumn, and best of all, ice hockey in winter. For hockey, I was the goalie. I had shin pads, but no mask or helmet. The Y also provided weekly entertainment. For 3 summers, I would go Tuesday nights to their bonfires, which consisted primarily of movies shown outdoors. In winter, the movies moved indoors on Saturday mornings. And so I got the cinema bug, along with a fondness for the Marx Brothers. I can still elicit a groan from Sue whenever I stream their 1935 classic, A Night at the Opera. Their Duck Soup was earlier. It was released in November of 1933, and as with all Marx Brothers movies, it is slapstick with terrible puns and even some offensive vaudeville humor. But Duck Soup is more than that. It's a brilliant satire of inept political leadership. Not everyone was amused. Mussolini, who had already been in power for 11 years, banned it from Italy. How many of you seen Duck Soup? Just a show of hands. Okay. You need to know that before the Marx Brothers made their movie, the term duck soup meant something that was easily accomplished. In a nutshell, the story goes like this. The country of Fredonia is broke. The people are restless. The powers that be ask its richest citizen, a Mrs. Teasdale, to lend it $20 million. But she will only agree if they name Rufus T. Firefly, Groucho, who's on the screen before, as Fredonia's leader. A bit of political machination. Firefly leads Fredonia into a war with neighboring and equally inept Sylvania. If you haven't seen Duck Soup, give it a try. Whether by design or coincidence, though, many of the movies that I saw at the YMCA in Montreal were about people who, against both odds and expectations, chose to speak up and act as individuals, as leaders. Frank Capra's 1939 movie, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, with Jimmy Stewart as the idealistic young man sent to fill a vacant Senate seat, is a wonderful cinematic example of an ordinary citizen of whom little is expected. Indeed, the cynical and corrupt political bosses who back him expect and want little. But Smith's honesty and initiative win in the end. This is Hollywood and Frank Capra, after all. But those traits that Smith showed in the movie did have historical resonance 6 years later in the person of Harry Truman, of whom very little was expected. So back to Montreal. My father died less than a year after we emigrated from Budapest to Montreal. A couple of years later, my mom remarried an American citizen, a widower, who had been a close college friend of my father. So 4 months after my 10th birthday, we moved to Cleveland Heights, Ohio. Stepdad George was a gruff but kindly man who, among other things, patiently taught me how to use tools. But more important to me at that time was that he owned a television. As an immigrant, for the second time in 3 years, I wanted to learn about my new country. This was also a good excuse to be allowed more TV time than the official parental limit of 1/2 hour a day. I happened to find a weekly TV series on ABC called The Cavalcade of America. As the website IMDb notes, it documented historical events using stories of individual courage, initiative, and achievement. And courage is one of the missions of this church, we heard at the beginning of the service. Now, these were decidedly feel-good episodes aimed at white, middle-class audiences. Thankfully, and much belatedly, the demographics of admirable heroes seen on both the small and the large screen have widened in the decades since. At its core, what I got from Cavalcade is that the strength of America arises from the fact that leaders come from all walks of life and from all over this vast land. Not the usual suspects, to borrow another cinematic line. If you had come, as I did, from a place where national leadership consisted of an autocratic emperor followed by a series of ever worse dictators, this was a revelation. If Cavalcade of America were on today, I think that one of its episodes would be devoted to Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman. We heard his words in our reading. He was born in Ukraine, came to the U.S. at age 3. He risked and lost his senior job at the National Security Council after he testified at the October 2019 impeachment hearings about the abuse of presidential power. By today, we realize that democracy is fragile, but it also has strength. What I learned, not just from movies, but even more so from reading history, is that its strength arises not so much from group actions, which generally occur long after the initial spark, but more out of individual actions of citizens taking responsibility. Each such step weaves one strand that may appear fragile, but in its entirety becomes a strong web. So I'm going to share something that is out of fashion just now and may even be unpopular. I have a problem with group-centric initiatives, no matter how well I am individually aligned with the group's aims. Actually, I have 3 problems. First, I think that our responsibility as citizens demands more of us than group initiatives. And this echoes our Unitarian Universalist 4th principle, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. We should be unafraid to stand up and let our own small voice be heard. It may even go viral. Second, I think that group actions such as protest rallies are no longer effective in shaping opinion in an age when so many rallies are held. Third and last, group actions make it hard to have a dialogue, which starts with listening to folks with whom we disagree. Think of any protest, and then reflect on the counter-protest that trails behind it. Now let's imagine an alternative. Only individual engagement with those whose views differ from ours has a reasonable chance of changing their minds. This is a hallmark of civil behavior and one of the many duties of full civil rights. This can be tough as was demonstrated by my experience just last month in Germany with a fellow tourist sitting across the table from me in Rothenburg. He said that he liked that we were eating at the Gasthaus Glocke because it reminded him of a Glock pistol. The first instinct was to turn away, move on to another conversation. But the alternative was better. When we engage those with whom we disagree, we at least stand a chance of influencing their thought. This notion of engagement, of leaning into a difficult conversation instead of avoiding it, reminds me of my sailing San Francisco Bay. In summertime, this often means really heavy winds. And I had to really discipline myself to face the elements by turning the boat into the wind before I tried to reset the sails. Movies are often remakes of plots and characters that have been shown before, reruns, whether literal or figurative. History is like the movies, because history repeats itself only with differences. The presidency, Supreme Court decisions, an ineffective Congress, gerrymandered voting districts. We have seen them all before, with a few differences, in the tapestry that is American history. So finally, my two threads of movies and actual history intertwine. I'm not referring to Ronald Reagan. There is a sitcom, a total of 51 episodes over 3 seasons, called Servant of the People. It debuted in 2015. The storyline is simple, and it's straight out of Frank Capra. Amidst a presidential election, an ordinary 30-something high school history teacher gets really upset by the corruption in the country and its politics. He goes off on a rant in front of his class. One of his students records this outburst on a smartphone and then posts it on YouTube. It goes viral, even inspiring crowdfunding to finance the teacher's campaign. And improbably, the teacher is elected president. He then sets out on a vigorous campaign to end corruption. But Servant of the People is just a Netflix sitcom, you might say. It's not real. After all, it was conceived and produced by a comedian. Well, the comedian happens to be Volodymyr Zelensky, who shortly thereafter was elected as the real president of Ukraine. How do you build a magnificent structure? One brick at a time. Our new patio out there is a fine example, thanks to Nigel Deach, his fellow scouts, and his parents, Elizabeth and Steve. But it wasn't built en masse. It wasn't built in total. It was built painstakingly, one brick at a time. One step at a time takes leadership. As Henry Kissinger, who is now 99 years old, notes in his new book, Leadership, 6 Studies in World Strategy, let me quote, "Leadership is most essential during periods of transition, when values and institutions are losing their relevance and the outlines of a worthy future are in controversy." End of quote. So how do we rebuild our democracy and confidence in its institutions? One action, one email, one thread, a conversation with someone with whom you disagree, not using a megaphone, but one action by each of us. It isn't easy. It's certainly not duck soup. Shalom.
Please rise in body or spirit and sing our closing hymn, number 139 in the gray hymnal, "Wonders Still the World Shall Witness." May it be so. Wonders still the world shall witness, never known in days of old, never dreamed by ancient sages, howsoever of science, all made one and understood. They shall know a world transfigured, which our eyes but dimly see. They shall make its towns and woodlands beautiful from sea to sea. For a spirit then shall move them, we but vaguely apprehend. Aims magnificent and holy, making joy and labor friend. Then shall bloom in song and fragrance, harmony of thought and deed, fruits of peace and love and justice, where today we plant the seed.
Fix our steps, O Lord, so that we stagger not at the uneven motions of the world, rather that we go steadily on our way, neither censuring the journey by the weather we meet, nor turning aside from anything that might befall us.